Hi, my perfectly primal tribe. It's Luciana, and I have a thought to share today about eating and seasons. So let's dive into it. I was looking in my Woolies app today. They've pushed through their weekly specials, and it got me going to the next stage, looking at my saved list and just seeing what we needed because we're going to be going up and shopping within a few days. And I noticed that their frozen berries are back in stock. And it really was annoying. Well, for a few months, these were out of stock because frozen berries are one of those things that we allow ourselves. We indulge a little bit in them. They're a bit of a low-carb treat, if you will. So, allowed on keto and all of that stuff, which we do. So not having access to them for a few weeks was really annoying. But now that started to make me wonder that, they're available now. We can start buying them now. Do we eat seasonally or do we eat supermarketally? Are we beholden unto what we can buy at our local supermarket these days, as opposed to being able to go out and forage and just eat what's available in nature? And how does that affect us? Well, when we eat outside of the cyclical eating patterns that we've developed over the course of many thousands and thousands of years, we tend to gain weight and we tend to overindulge in things that aren't really appropriate because we have access to them all the time. We don't have a time of scarcity. There is no time where we can actually dip into fasting, into fat burning, into all of those fun things. We're not fat adapted like we used to be unless we intentionally focus on it and bring that into our lives. So we end up eating too many carbs, especially starchy things like potatoes, sweet potatoes, rice, grains. All of those things are available and grown and pushed out to us all the time, and available in processed foods and all of that stuff. So anyway, when we keep to our seasonal food cycles, there's a brief and specific time of the year when certain foods, were available to us, especially in the past. We did eat sugary and starchy foods, don't get me wrong. These things were actually grown and revered even. But think summer and autumn feasts. There's this time of plenty when the fruits are fruiting and the berries are there, and then the wheat is waving in the fields, and people are harvesting, and suddenly there's Thanksgiving and we have pumpkins. I mean, there's a reason pumpkins have been associated with the autumn and with that time of the year. And this sort of practice paved the way for us to survive winter, especially for those of us who have ancestors up in the northern latitudes, where things do tend to get frozen over and very cold. And when winter hit, most people living in those higher latitudes became carnivores by necessity. I mean, there were very minimal vegetable matter available around at the time. And this is, that's just how it went. Food and food preservation, of course, has been one of the biggest drivers in human technology throughout history. Probably war is the only other one that really gets us going, but I'll back off of that one. Yay to our intelligence. Awesome, cool. We get to invent things, but in recent years, food technology sometimes works to our detriment, especially when it comes to processed foods or food-like substances, because I refuse to call things like Doritos and Twisties food. I mean, that's not actual food. So it's certainly muddied the waters when it comes to eating, seasonally. You really have to become familiar these days with your local farmers markets to start understanding what food is actually seasonal. Because as you walk through your local supermarket, you'll have no idea when you see scores of fruit and veg still available all year round, in their pretty little stalls and in their cupboards. And how can you pick it? Well, maybe price is a good indicator of what's seasonal. Only buy the fruit and veggies that are on special? I don't know. Sometimes that doesn't work. But it's not, it's just not accurate, because a lot of those things, sometimes you'll have specials on fruit that they've bought from halfway around the world. So unless you look at the label, and if your supermarket is good enough to label country of origin, you don't know that either. All right, so do we have a solution? Well, not really, because, we're spoiled these days. I know I am. I know I like access to strawberries or mushrooms or cauliflower or whatever, at all times of the year. And the only reason I back off of avocados is because they become bloody expensive. But, what I suggest is that we try a little harder, like we become a little bit more aware of it. Do go to farmers markets and support those as much as possible. Buy food produced in your own country. If you have an origin label, opt to the one that comes from your country first, even if it's a little more expensive, because it is grown locally and it is something that's actually going to be more nutritionally dense and valid for you. Back off the cheap overseas stuff that comes any time of the year, and even back off of some of the frozen food a little bit. Even if they've been snap frozen and are, nutritionally great and everything, I think it's sometimes, especially when it comes to certain starchy things, it keeps driving the insulin. It keeps us in this state of, it's sort of like staying awake all the time as opposed to giving yourself a chance to sleep. It's probably my best analogy on that one. And of course, I'm going to dive into this one. Remember that protein should really be the cornerstone of your meal. Make sure you eat your eggs, your beef, your pork, your chicken. It's all good for you. Oh, fish. Have fish. Just, of course, make sure it's decent fish and try to get localer fish. Try not to buy stuff that's been produced in dirty waters overseas. I will go on record saying that, vegetable protein is a very poor second to animal protein, and I will argue that point until I am dead in the ground because I have done my research. Do add plenty of non-starchy, leafy type, fruits and veggies into your diet, even, things like capsicum, olives, leafy greens, green beans, cauliflower, broccoli, asparagus, cabbage. I mean, the list goes on. So make sure you eat plenty of those. But don't forget your meat. Make sure you have some of that on your plate and make sure that you get the best quality meat that you can afford. I mean, any meat's better than none, but the better it's been raised, the more nutritious it will be for you. Don't forget that even in the bleak midwinter, our ancestors, you usually brought down a deer, a wild boar, even a rabbit, when they had to have something to eat. So now, have you guys ever thought about seasonal eating? How do you think you rate on this spectrum, of seasonal eating? Have a think. Please feel free to fact check me. I'm not styling myself as an expert or anything like that. I'm only passing on information in good faith that I have myself gleaned from other sources. And, if you have any questions, comments, or suggestions, please feel free to leave them down below in the comments. I will answer them and have a look. So take care, stay safe, stay perfectly primal, and remember, you're never too old to be the person you want to be. Keep tending that inner dragon. Bye.